Lindsay Mosca.
Present.
John Quartz.
Present.
Present. Okay. First order of business is discussion on FY18 budget review.
Excellent.
Great. I'm going to hand it over to the superintendent.
Or Mary.
And Mary, the assistant superintendent.
Okay, I printed out for you the same report, absent the memo that I handed out,
Thank you.
that we had included in the packet for, was that?
That's right.
Monday?
Get them out?
We have so many.
I have it electronically. Thank you.
And, as you see, right now, we're projecting that at year end, we could have an available balance of as much as $785,000. Just by way of background, if you recall, a big portion of this, well over 300,000, relates to unfilled positions. For example, we had a data and assessment specialist position at $80,000 that went unfilled. We had some district-wide library media specialists that went unfilled for a portion of the year, though one was filled at some point in the year with the literacy coach. And we had,
It was the coach, not the library, it was the reading, don't worry.
I'm sorry, reading.
I remember you were going.
District-wide reading specialist.
Yes.
Sorry.
We had two, and one was filled in the middle of the year, and the other one went unfilled, because we knew we were moving into the coaching model, so therefore, we wanted to make sure we had the best candidates, and found one in the middle, and one we're in for now.
Great.
And that was a $90,000 position, and then we had.
Plus the half year, we ended up with the.
Dark time savings on the half year.
So the library media wasn't the
No,
case?
it was a reading coach.
Specialist. And then we had the position of Director of Health and Wellness, Tyler Mercedes' position that went unfilled, that was at $120,000 approximately. And then we had a maintenance position that went unfilled for the large part of the year. That was the electrician position, and Laurie has just hired an electrician. That was a $70,000 position. So that was a big piece of that amount, as well as some of the turnover savings from people who were retired and then replacements are hired at a lower rate than the incumbents. And then we had assumed that we were going to use a lot more of the FY17 circuit breaker than what we ended up using, and we got more than what we anticipated. Similar situation appears to be emerging for 18 as well. The legislature went back and appropriated additional supplemental funding to get us from the 65% up to 72%. They're estimating.
Oh,
right
up to 72?
Yeah, 72, yeah. So all
The
those.
FY17 survey, you have to use that, though, don't you?
You do have to use it, but we had more than what we
More than what we needed.
anticipated. We thought we were going to
Oh, I
end
see.
up
You ended up
spending
with
more
more.
in 17 than what
Yeah,
we had to. We
yeah.
actually ended up carrying forward the entire amount. We didn't think we were going to carry forward the entire amount. So that was to the benefit of the FY18 budget. So that's why we have kind of this somewhat unusual situation of having this balance available.
Can I ask you a question? This is not structural.
No.
Okay.
No, because those positions, in particular those positional savings, have been already appropriated as part of the FY19 budget.
Right,
So-
because some of them have been shifted or already allocated to some of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Math coach.
Right, so I remember talking about some of those were shifts that we were making for next year anyways.
Yes.
Okay. So we're not this.
And we scaled way back on our assumptions in terms of the use of current year, so for the 19 circuit breaker, using all of 18 and scaled way back on 18. So I don't anticipate you're going to continue to have this level of savings.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so given that it is one time in nature, I think it's appropriate to talk about, what would be appropriate since it is one time. We have certainly addressed any of the needs that principals and coordinators have had with respect to building up in live classroom libraries, technology purchases, anything like that. Facilities, projects that were on the, kind of hold off until we know what the year-end situation is. So those are already built into the projection of what we'll spend between now and June 30th, that 583,000. So I think that we'll be pretty close to that 785. If I were to offer a recommendation, I would say two things. One thing that you could do is to, I don't know that Watertown, Tom would know better than I, has prepaid special education tuition, but the law does allow you to prepay special education tuition. You can prepay up to 3 months worth of private school tuitions. You can prepay up to a year's worth, a whole year's worth of public collaborative tuitions. So we certainly have enough tuitions to substantiate some significant amount of expenditure of this amount.
What is the full year we can prepay
You can prepay a full year for public collaboratives.
for a year? And do we have students in public collaboratives?
We do.
Okay.
We have, probably close to $300,000 for the students in public collaboratives.
And what could potentially be 3 months of special education tuition?
Another, 300,000 anyway.
Okay. So 600 of this, 785 could potentially be used to prepay for FY19.
Conservatively, yes.
Okay.
Yep. The other option is to make a contribution to the special education stabilization fund. Again, I don't have the history on how that was created. It's my understanding, and again, Tom, I'm glad you're here. I think the intent was to try to get that funding up to $1 million. I don't know why I have that in my mind, but that was kind of what people were thinking is eventually, there's currently 800,000 in there right now. I think there's like 785, 795 plus interest earnings, so there's about 800,000. So if the goal was to have that up to $1 million, then certainly a piece of this could be transferred into that.
So gives you a sense of that is just for like unexpected special education funds you did it.
So, but I have a question on that, because I know there's been discussions in the past about the use of that, and I think you're in discussions about how that can be used. My only concern with how that's written is that if it's written that all funds need to be expended before we can tap into that, I have a real problem with that, because the whole purpose was to not dip into general ed funds to pay for costs, overruns in one other bucket, is in the special education bucket. And so I just want to be really careful and clear about that before we add anything else into that. I mean, I want to be careful here about it with $800,000, but generally, I know you're working on that, but I care about making that done and writing that correctly.
I think the stabilization fund was created, like 3 or 4 years ago?
It was
It was
I think maybe actually
more than that.
It was more than 5 or 6.
I think, don't hold me exact amount, I think it was 780, 790, and Mary's right, with the
790.
accumulated interest, it's up in excess of 800, slightly over
Yeah.
800, last time I looked.
So I think the town put money in maybe twice.
We put money in, but the problem, this was created, we had a couple of years before this, where the school department had to come back to the town for additional funds to fund. So the manager thought that this was an appropriate
Yeah, that was
way
very
to
thoughtful.
begin.
Right.
Absolutely.
And fortunately, since that
We
was
have
put in
neither.
place, we haven't had that issue.
I know.
Yeah, not more times to do that than.
Yeah,
And we only put it in once, to the best of my
yeah,
knowledge.
790.
I think what you may be thinking about, John, about multiple times, is that we have out in the forecast, usually in the forecast the last 3 years, we have 250,000 for each of the last 3 years of the forecast, just as a placeholder, in the event that we took money out, that we get to replenish it at a later date.
My thought is that where some of this is coming from, a good chunk of this is really coming from special education, and savings in special education, that wouldn't it be appropriate, I think when you think about it, like if you have deficits and you're gonna draw from it, then certainly when you have surpluses, shouldn't that be deposited to it as well? So I think
Well,
that's.
it also seems like some of the benefit that we're seeing this extra money is from unexpectedly higher state funding, which we know is variable, it isn't necessarily gonna last or be available in the future, so I agree with you.
I just want to make sure it can be drawn down at the appropriate time.
Well, it does,
Questions about.
it does say like you can't, it does have to come.
This is,
out of
this should, I should have written a draft all of
Yeah.
this,
Oh, no.
this is the draft, and actually, we're meeting with Tom on Friday, I think, to talk through that.
We really are.
And I think it's on the agenda on the 11th for the Budget and Fiscal Oversight Committee as well, to talk to, so,
Okay,
so,
great,
this reflects your sentiments,
okay.
but this is draft,
It's draft.
so.
Good.
All right.
So just,
Oh,
if I could, so previous years we've had leftover money from like this, but we put it in the circuit breaker fund and carried over.
We have a full carry over.
So we're maxed out, right, carried over.
So,
There's nothing on.
previous year, we created carryover
Right.
by doing some journal entries between Mary's office and my office, doing a journal entry and saying, okay, there was leftover money in the sped budgets, if you will, in the operating budgets, but we'd already spent money on the circuit breaker, so we moved money out of the circuit breaker to allow the full carryover effect of the circuit breaker and spent it in there. So we basically used the surplus that was in the operating budget to some degree in the sped, and then we were able to it's always nice to use that, have that circuit breaker for the previous year fully
yes.
available.
And the advantage to using, you know, $400,000 or $500,000 or so of the budget to prepay tuitions is that in the 19 budget, we did assume that we were going to use about 400, give or take, thousand of the FY19 circuit breaker receipts. So if we don't have to do that, which pre-funding the tuitions would do, then that puts you on cycle, which is the basically every area of school district to carry forward each year, and as long as you're able to maintain that, that puts you in a position
Oh,
where
that's
you
right,
have,
'cause-
you have budget certainty, so that when you develop the budget, you know you have that much money carried forward, and you know exactly what the offset will be, and you're not guessing at what the state funding might or might not be.
So at the very least, we should take 400 of the 785 and put it towards some prepayment, knowing that that will allow
Should eliminate the
that.
need.
So you should be like,
to
carry over
carry
full.
Correct? No, and that is a responsible
If
way
all
to
things go well.
manage it.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, that would be like the appropriate plan.
yeah.
But the plan is you are going to carry over everything that's in 18.
Everything in 18 gets.
So
Right.
for 19.
Correct.
It's already-
And will
yeah.
be
Well, but
spent.
right now, we have we're planning on spending 400 of that.
Of 19.
In 19.
But
Yes.
in 19.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
The plan right now, the budget is built on the premise that you're gonna spend all of 18, you're gonna carry forward all of 18 and expend all of 18 in 19. And in addition, you're gonna spend 400,000 of 19 proceeds for circuit breaker as well. So by prepaying, you don't have to hit 19, and the theory being you can carry forward all of 19, and as you're building the budget for 19, you will have that budget certainty that you will be able to carry forward all of 19 into 20 as you build the 20 budget.
Yeah, right, all things going, as we go.
Are there other things that are high priorities that would qualify as one-time costs that you think would be beneficial for the district?
As far as I'm concerned, like we put this out to the principal and to Laurie a couple of times. I think that we've accounted for everything that at least I'm aware of. But
Yeah, the one thing that we continue to discuss is maybe the purchase of a 10-person van.
Okay, so that's where I was going.
Yes, we are looking at different, ideas in terms of like van sizes we can actually use in schools.
Right.
Which is a little bit, we thought 14 might be the option, but 10 actually is what is recommended by through insurance. Like you're not supposed to have more than 10 for
Okay, so it's a
school
different project.
transportation. Because what?
A different, not the
It's
license.
not licensed, it's just in terms of right,
Insurance.
Oh,
with
14,
kids and
15 passenger
Right.
vans, and National Transportation Safety Administration.
So we're gonna have, over the next 5 years, we're gonna have to be moving kids around, athletes around a lot to different fields, knowing that we're gonna have a lot of construction and changes, and we have to move kids around. Regardless, we're gonna have to move kids around to athletic fields. The other thing is, if we do want to think about how we can collaborate better with things like the Boys and Girls Club or other nonprofits in the community, you know, having vans that they can rent or we can share in some way is something I'd like to think about, so that we can, you know, get kids, have some equity along the elementary and middle school about how we get kids places after school. You know, I don't know what it looks like in terms of renting rather than, or buying, and, you know, but,
Yeah, no, I think the thing about, I mean, actually, the actual vehicle,
yeah,
I-
cost-wise.
I can't speak to that.
Okay.
But I can speak to, I can speak to the fact that it was, somebody had wondered at some point whether, why not just procure transportation services? Like, you know, get a bus to transport the kids around. But in terms of, and that might be cost effective, like in the moment.
Right.
But in reality, when you have these smaller vehicles that can be driven by, you know, teachers, you will find it during the day, you know, with our LEAP program or with, you know, taking kids to an internship or taking kids, you know, those
Right.
vehicles are used every day. So you can't predict, you know, to say, I need a bus, you know, and then so cost effectiveness, actually, I think in the end, it's better if you have a couple of vans or at least one van.
So you could use them for field, like two of them for a field trip rather than paying bus costs, which is so ridiculous.
Yep, I think we just saw, I see the field trips when they come through, you know, sometimes it's please release these, you know, 8 students to go someplace, and then that would save that transportation, you know. I get why people might think it's better just to rent a bus, but
It's not.
it happens I mean, like almost every day, I bet you 10 to 1 that somebody will be using that vehicle.
Okay.
That's what we've found in previous places.
And in terms of, I mean, if you lease it, then, you know, you have, if over 3 to 5 years, you're only paying a third to a fifth of the cost of the shoe, whereas if you buy it outright, you're absorbing the cost with this amount of savings that you know, are likely not to happen again. So
Right.
this is definitely an opportunity, and I think you're talking probably about maybe 40 to 45,000 per bid and per cost.
And then can we sell that big van that we don't use?
I mean, so,
Right.
so it is a difficult, it is difficult to find a driver because it does require a CDL.
Right.
We've had a really hard time with that.
I know.
It's not used as frequently as I think folks thought it was. It cost $85,000 to procure. That money did come out of community education, so I think that there's an argument to be made, and Deb Cornelius would certainly make this argument that that asset was purchased with community ed funds, and if that vehicle was sold, you know, to what, shouldn't the value of that asset, you know, go back to that, right, accrue back to community ed? Whereas if you traded it in, yeah, you get an offset for the purchase, but community ed would be basically kindly offsetting that expense. And I don't even know from a Department of Revenue perspective if they would take a liking to that plan. Or if you used to.
Do they use it now?
Community ed does use it,
Yeah.
but very infrequently.
Yeah.
So I'd rather, it doesn't really matter, I'm happy to have it go back to community ed because that makes sense. I just don't want it to be wasted anymore. I just hate that it's sitting there.
Are we up against like a timeline issue for trying to think about purchasing vehicles with this money?
Well,
Like, I'm just kind of curious, because it kind of
The
seems like
fact
we're
that
like June
I have
30th,
six,
you
yeah.
know?
17 days left, and you want me to buy?
Yeah, Mary said that to me today when we talked about it.
Come on, Mary, you gotta go with the bang, you gotta make a big statement piece.
The good news is that there are state contracts in place for vehicle purchases that we could access through the operational services division, so we could, I think, very quickly get quotes and put specifications together. We would use the same specifications that some of our transportation providers, like for special education transportation, use. We already have those specifications, so we could get quotes and put it in order. Yes, it's a quick turnaround. I think that we would get it done, but I think that's the.
I hate to raise concerns, but this was not on the agenda for discussion.
This is.
You know, for buying a bus.
Well, it's what you use
How
the,
do you use the funds?
How we use the money.
Okay, and it still has to go to the school committee. No.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
everything does.
Oh, yeah, no,
Everything
this
does.
body only makes recommendations.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's one of the options for.
right.
But to the timeline issue.
Yeah, we can find out what the,
Why is the,
If we want to even look into it, they can look into it and present an option at the next meeting in June.
why is the thought that it would require a vote, it doesn't require?
Well,
It's
I
within
mean,
the operating budget.
yeah, but I think if we're going to to make a recommendation of how the balance ought to be used, it should be, it would be a recommendation of the full school committee, not the subcommittee. I mean, subcommittee doesn't have the,
No, I think Mary's question is, why does it need authorization from the full school committee to make this purchase?
of to make the
If
purchase.
they were going to make a purchase, does it need authorization?
I don't know, I mean, it's not in the budget now, I suppose, one could look at it that way, so it's outside the budget, so I would say, I would think. we-
All right.
Good, thanks.
Okay. I
And
don't
we
know.
haven't really faced this situation
Yeah.
before.
That's unique.
Yeah.
We never had that much money before.
I know, I was.
Well, we have money, but what we've always done is what Tom says.
Yeah.
No, we created money, this is different, this is actually having.
Right.
Yeah, it's not just shifting a pile, it's actually, it's all the
Yeah.
same, mostly there.
There's no place to put it, other
John,
than
we've
to spend
never
it.
had this before, and last year was the biggest
Thank you.
turnover
I know, it's
of, dropping to the bottom line, is my language would be roughly $50,000, I forgot the exact number, was the largest that the school department's ever done during my tenure.
Right.
Previously to that, it's never exceeded $10,000.
So I just want to take this opportunity to thank Mary. Thank you.
I think there's a need for us, a van,
Oh, good.
Yeah.
clearly, maybe two vans.
So
I think two.
Yeah, no, I would love to see two, I mean, student athletes, field trips. I'd also like to, if we could find like create an MOU with some of our partner nonprofits in town, and if they, they could use them and provide the drivers, I think it could be very widely used.
It would be a big, collaboration point of conversation too, like we've been saying that we wanna do those things with other groups in town, and to actually make it available and have this opportunity to do that.
Yeah, and exactly, you know, insurance and all
Well,
that.
right, right.
If involving the other entities, other nonprofits, that's gonna be really spelled out.
Yeah.
Insurance.
No, I totally understand. I know
There's town departments that we partner with.
Sure,
such as
yeah,
our
my
department.
successor will welcome the opportunity to take it.
Yes. Yeah, no, and we can just start at the very basic, which is student, I mean, will be used with just field trips and student athletes among the class students.
I mean, I think that you're right with the point that with all of the construction and rearranging and potential shiftings of people, even in this more little words per mile stamp it would be helpful to have those options.
But, so let me go, so I think it makes sense to at least put that out there as something to explore.
Yeah.
But just so I'm just going back, because we're gonna have to close up here in a minute, but, so if we had 400 for prepay, right? 400,000 for prepay, and then if we could if we're talking about two of these, like 100,000 for this, and then that would give us
Put the rest in
the rest into the stabilization fund, which would be like 250.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I would cut so close to one, so assuming 200,000 and give us a little bit of play with,
Yeah.
50 or 60,000. And, perhaps, that town is very generous about journal entries, whatever, but I've never been opposed to helping with their regeneration of free cash either. So we have to
That's what
take that
reversion
from
would
that
help us,
side.
it helps us with the free
Right,
cash.
yeah.
One thing I do want to caution the community about, as far as we put money into the stabilization fund, that would probably procedurally, needs a budget amendment.
From us, or you have to do that?
Yeah, we would have to do.
So would we revert the money back to you and then you put it in?
No.
Is that how it works?
Because what happens is you're moving money out of an operating budget
Yep.
into a stabilization fund.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think if that's a budget amendment or a transfer. Maybe it is just a transfer. I'd have to talk to legal counsel on that.
So if we were.
And the difference, so just so you know, the transfer can be done in one meeting, council meeting.
Mm-hmm.
A budget amendment needs 2 meetings and an advertising.
And we can't do that by.
You don't do a budget amendment to take the money to the money at the ESCO stabilization.
No, we don't.
So
That's
I
why
don't think that's
I'm
what we said.
leaning more toward a
Which
transfer.
we are planning on giving them 400,000 for that.
And that's not,
That's already.
that's our.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but usually the July meeting,
We can-
we make transfers into like the capital project stabilization.
We've also done it in the late June, the
Last
last
July.
quarter of July. You should you can do a transfer as long as the meeting before is 5:15. You can, you can do activity on 18, using this year as an example. You have the July 10th town council meeting, the ability to do transfers, which is what we do. We usually do is say, okay, we've got money left over here and there.
Okay.
We move money, as Mary mentioned, ESCO, capital projects, maybe, so that's some of the things.
But that's usually, it's unspent money that, on July 1st, we reverse to free cash. And then, rather than taking free cash, that's right. So really, whatever unspent money in other departmental accounts, and that's how we sort of build some of these.
But I do think if you're gonna move money into this sped stabilization fund, I do think that would be the school committee as well as the town.
Yes, I would expect so.
Right.
So we could potentially do that at the June 18th meeting, and then hand it over to the council.
But we put money into the regional schools.
So-
Yeah, we-
That's one of the other board of the school committee.
No, we did, because we created it.
Yeah, and you
We
funded it.
created it and we funded it. What we'd be doing is using monies that was already been appropriated to the school committee and the school appropriation. So in order to use it for a different purpose,
Yeah.
my belief, and I can check with legal counsel, but my belief, the safest view would be that the school committee would bless the,
Would it be-
a different use of the
And
monies.
that was my expectation as well.
Okay.
I'm not as clear about the van purchase, but you're right, it wasn't in the budget, but this, to me, it clearly was gonna require.
All right, so maybe we can, just to make sure we are covered here, we can have a discussion at the June 18th meeting about all of
Put it on
this.
the agenda as
Put
an
it on the
action
agenda
item.
as an action item.
Yep.
Yeah, and then make some final decisions on vans, the contributions to stabilization fund, as well as the prepayment.
Yeah.
And as well as the reversion amount.
So I would need to probably have kind of quotes at the end to give you a good sense of what we were talking
Is that
about.
possible to do? Okay.
Anything is possible.
So, and to
How much?
assist,
We'll put Aaron's name on the side.
I just get to really do it.
Very good.
Very live.
And I'll take the other one.
and to assist Mary,
Yeah.
June 18th, there's still 12 days left of the fiscal year, so it still's not gonna be exactly right to the dollar. So
Right.
Oh, yeah.
It's got something gonna happen on
Yes.
June 29th,
Right.
that Mary can't even.
Yes, no, and it all, that's why Billy's
Very
very pushing
good.
makes sense, yeah.
So we're talking about 200,000 for the stabilization?
Correct.
So I'll make a motion.
400 for prepayment, 200 for the stabilization, and 2 10-person van purchases, is what was discussed as,
Potential action item for the subcommittee.
Right, so I can make a motion that we recommend to the full school committee that they do the appropriate adjustments with the budget to do 400,000 in the prepay for FY19 tuitions, 100,000 set aside for a bus, and then 200,000 for
so the other thing I want to know is, I want to make sure that we are set on selling the community ed van, because it just looks bad to buy 2 more vans when we're not using that one already, so I just want to be able to say definitively, yes, we are going to sell that van.
Is it our van to sell?
Yeah, yeah.
Put the money back into the.
In the community ed, yeah.
Why don't you just add that to your motion?
Can you add that in? John, we're having,
Okay, you guys can stay, but we gotta get some.
all right,
All in
Second.
favor?
aye.
Second? Aye.